Chapter 11. Factions.
Didn't know anyone would willingly walk into this place. Not unless they were looking for trouble.
Gone. Every pony in Manhattan is just gone. I was talking with my best friend, Silver Spoon, over terminal chat when the connection went dead. My best friend is dead. only she's not laying dead somewhere. One minute she was talking to me, telling me about the concert she went to last night at Hoofbeats, and then she was just gone. Erased. They say the ponies in a few of the ministry's buildings might have survived, but that doesn't sound real. Shattered Hoof is more than 2 days' trot from Manhattan, and some of the guards said they could hear the mega spell go off. It was unnatural. Alien, not like a real sound. A few of the guards ventured up on the highest ridge. They came back describing a huge pillar of perverted green fire with a strange rainbow sheen, wrapped with rings of black smoke, lifting up into the clouds from just over the horizon where Manhattan is supposed to be. Now they're saying Cloudsdale was hit too. And that Equestria's own mega spells have already been cast back into Zebras. Oh no. Will the Zebras hit Ponyville? It's so small. They wouldn't, would they? It's gonna warn Mom and Dad. Maybe they can get into the stable at Sweet Apple Acres. Oh, please, it's still gotta be open. Last week, Silver Spoon told me that Stable Tech was filing ponies into the stables around Manhattan. That was only some sort of test run. Nothing for ponies to panic about. It's not like they knew.
I turned off the log. While it had played, several others had been downloaded into my pip-buck. I had been finding bits of this pony's audio diary scattered all about the guardhouse. I had pulled an ear bloom from my armored utility barding and tuned into it with my pip-buck, allowing me to listen to the recordings in one ear without giving away my position. Calamity returned from scouting ahead, signaling with his tail that the path was clear. Movement through Shattered Hoof was proving swifter than I felt we had any right to expect. Our progress was partially due to keeping our hoof prints as small as possible. No lining our saddlebags with items that could be missed. I made an exception for the contents of the lost and found safe, justifying the theft with the reminder that the safe had not been opened since before the megaspells, and so no pony here would be suspicious if it was empty, just so long as I closed it and locked it again. But more than that, these ponies didn't seem to consider that the fortress could be infiltrated. They weren't on guard. I'm not a mistress of shadow, but I hardly needed the advanced tutelage from zebra infiltration tactics to slip past ponies who were being this oblivious. I'd skimmed through the book while Calamity was fetching the mattress cover. Calamity wasn't quite as good, and had nearly tipped the Shattered Hoof Raider to his presence twice now, but we'd managed to hide each time. I figured once we got back to the train fort of God, I'd pass him a zebra infiltration tactics to peruse himself. It's not as if books can only be read once, after all. Inside a Shattered Hoof proper was a cold, monotonous gray. Much like maintenance in Stable 2, except here all the walls were cracked and chipped, The ceiling decayed, the light weak and uneven, cast from small lanterns hung from railroad spikes chiseled into the walls. The darkening sky of clouds outside turned the high-set, barred windows into dead eyes, staring vacantly into the halls. Somewhere down the hall, a terribly sad song was playing over a radio. We were within the range of DJ Pony's broadcast again.
Ponies on the expressway, with no features, with no faces. Ponies milling about me, trudging off to nameless places.
The song pulled a melancholy chord in my heart. The singer somehow managing to make the Equestria before the war seem as dreary and bleak as the wasteland itself. As I followed Calamity, I considered turning on one of the other entries from the audio diary just to drown it out, but I realized that with it playing in only one ear, the two would likely mix into something even more depressing.
Waiting folks for their birthday, have a party, please be happy. Growing up all too swiftly, losing hopes of what they might be.
Oh, crap! I muttered dourly as I hugged a shadow behind a placard, "Hard work is happy work," and stared across the open rows of desks to the well-lit room beyond. Inside, a pony matching God's description of Deadeyes was sitting behind a desk, reading a book, Applied Gemstones. He was flanked by at least one guard pony that I could see, and possibly others I could not. The safe was directly behind him. There was no way to get at it stealthily. Even if I used the stealth bug, he'd hear the safe opening from less than a foot away from his ears.
Time for a backup plan,
I whispered to Calamity.
Got one?
Calamity raised his eyebrows.
Yeah, load 'em all up in the caboose and kick it free.
I winced as he reminded me how well one of his last plans had gone.
Could be worse,
he whispered with a smile.
I'm sure Velvet's plan would be to go up and ask him nicely.
I closed my eyes.
Damn it.
We couldn't just sit here waiting for the bastard to move. The longer we hung around, the better chance of getting caught.
Okay,
I said finally.
We'll do that.
Calamity's eyes went wide.
I was joking,
he hissed. Thankful to the hot mare statuette for returning some of my telekinetic magic, I carefully levitated my sniper rifle and assault carbine to Calamity.
Take these. Go back and hide in that side room with all the old flashlights,
I instructed, recalling a room that looked like it hadn't been used for anything other than a few quickies in several months.
I'll go up and say hello. And when they shoot you, what's the plan? I'm winging this here, but if all else fails, I still have the stealth bug. That should get me out. If shooting starts, don't wait for me. Get safely back to Remedy.
With an afterthought,
please.
Calamity scowled and moved off, muttering something under his breath about the wisdom of leaving winging it to non-Pegasus ponies. I started up another audio log, listening while I gave Calamity time to position himself safely away. The voice of the same mare leapt through my earbloom, sounding panicked.
The communication web is down. I tried to reach Mom and Dad, but I couldn't get through. At first it seemed that the web was flooded and my calls kept getting bounced, then it just died completely. We can't reach any of the Ministry of Morale hubs either. No pony was expecting the one in Manhattan to respond, but not even Kkat. Could this even... They couldn't possibly have destroyed Canterlot, could they? What happened to Princess Luna?
Having heard of the Canterlot ruins, I knew the answer. I toggled the next log.
It's starting to rain outside. It was bright and sunny less than an hour ago. I think the Pegasus ponies are mourning Cloudsdale. Most of the guards are gone now. They left me the codes to open the cells. Scoop said it was up to me. No pony else was going to risk setting our guests free. Why me? I'm not supposed to be the one in charge. If I don't, these ponies will starve to death in here, but if I do, some of them are really bad ponies. Some have even confessed to helping the zebras at Shattered Hoof Ridge when they tried to assassinate Princess Celestia. If I let them go, who knows what harm they might do. What's worse? Letting them die here or inflicting them on a wounded, suffering Equestria? No! I'm just an inspector. I'm not supposed to make these kind of decisions. Mom! Dad! Silver Spoon! What should I do?
I wasn't exactly sure why I was listening to these logs now. Curiosity? Or maybe, in a way, I was paying my respects to the past by listening? By learning? Either way, it didn't matter. Time to go.
How'd you get in here?
Deadeye scowled, staring down at me. I had 3 magical energy weapons pointed at my head, although the big, brutish pony to Deadeye's left looked like he'd rather kill me with his teeth.
Damn it, think.
Watcher might call honesty a virtue, but sometimes the ability to lie your tail off is a virtue too.
Used magic. I am a unicorn after all.
I felt a rush of relief. That had sounded plausible. Even I might have bought it if I didn't already know how much I suck at spells.
Better question is, why? Why? Why I came in here? No. Why are fillies different than colts?
The slate gray's ponies dripped with sarcasm.
What do you think?
Stammering, I realized I should have thought through my approach a lot better.
I wanted to...
I glanced away, mentally searching for inspiration. My eyes fell on a framed news article, yellowed with age, which featured a faded picture of a pretty unicorn.
Sweetie Belle performs patriotism concert at Shattered Hoof.
My eyes snapped back to meet Deadeye's own.
To join your crew. You're all escaped slaves, right? Well, I just escaped from old Appaloosa.
I realized just after I said it that I was wearing armored stable barding and probably looked nothing like an escaped slave. Deadeyes was regarding me with deep and well-deserved suspicion. If they started shooting, I was probably dead. Small and fast is helpful against long-range gunfire, but not so much against point-blank shots from weapons that'll melt you into a puddle. Worse, my heart sank when I realized that Calamity would almost certainly share my fate. From what I knew of my new friend, running and hiding weren't in his normal book of tactics. No matter what I'd told him to do, I suspected he'd choose to join in the firefight.
Tell you what, Philly.
Deadeyes seemed to finally decide, fixing me with a glare.
Let's see how you do with a couple of errands. Show yourself to be useful, and we'll chat again.
I gulped. Well, at least he hadn't shot me yet.
What do you need me to do? I have a letter that needs to be delivered. Not far, just a Yellow Ridge Hill, maybe an hour's trot. I've got a map you can download to your pickbuck. Deliver it. Come right back. We'll talk again.
As he pushed the sealed envelope across his desk to me, I wondered if it said something like, "Kill the pony carrying this letter."
Oh, and you'll need this leg band. It'll let Gardenia know you're okay to pass through.
Who? I asked as I slipped on the leg band, feigning ignorance.
The bitch of a griffin who runs our welcoming committee. Honestly, there's more trouble than she's worth, but the boss seems to like her, so she stays. For now.
The boss? I thought you were the boss.
Deadeyes clearly did not have the patience for questions that God did.
Scramble. If she talks again, start pulling off her legs.
The grin on the brute to Deadeye's left widened eagerly. I left quickly and wordlessly. I hadn't gotten far before one of Deadeye's guards came trotting out after me. He motioned for another, seemingly random shatter hoof pony to flank me on the other side. Without words, it was clear they were making sure I found my way out. As we approached the small room where Calamity was hiding, I blurted out as loudly as I could without sounding suspicious.
So, escorting ponies out, is that your official job? Are you the escorter-outer?
Shut up, Deadeye's guard said warningly, but the other replied easily. Actually, no, I'm just a rockbreaker. I raised an eyebrow.
Rockbreaker? So what's your story?
He seemed amiable enough.
Slavers assaulted my family homestead. My brother and I fought back while my wife tried to hide our foals. They killed my brother, took my lovely sugar plum and the foals, and left me for dead.
As he spoke, a cloud passed over his face. His eyes narrowed and a tone of sadness tinged with seething crept into each word.
Crawled myself here for the protection. I'm not a raider. I don't do any of that shit. I just work the rocks and thank the goddesses I'm not alone out in the wastes.
I nodded solemnly. What else could I do? In the heavy quiet that followed, I could hear that radio playing in some nearby room. The music had stopped, and DJ Pony was reporting the news.
Been warning everybody for some time now to steer clear of Appaloosa. Well, it seems the stable dweller either didn't get the message or chose to ignore it. I've gotten confirmed reports that the little gal marched into Appaloosa and brought hell on her hooves. Freed over a dozen slaves, many of them foals. I'm happy to report that they're safe and sound, but there's a bitter note to this song. When a small army of slavers tried to take their captives back, our heroine of the wasteland sacrificed herself, making sure every pony got away safe. So this next song goes out to you, stable dweller. May Celestia and Luna wrap you in their tales.
I stumbled, missing a step, my mind shocked by rapid realizations. The radio was talking about me. Again. The poor ponies I helped to freedom had made it safely. I was dead. Well, according to the radio. Some pony must have assumed I died in the train crash. Either that or some pony who knew better lied. I wanted to stop, go back, hear the rest of it. Kick or shout at the radio or somehow make it repeat everything from the beginning.
Keep moving.
Deadeye's guard barked as I momentarily fell behind. I trotted faster to put myself back between them. Looking at the guard, I asked him this time.
And what's your story?
With a glare,
I won my place here in the annual Stomp an Annoying Unicorn to Death competition.
Back to being quiet it was then. We were taking a slightly different, more direct path to the yard than the one Calamity and I had used. The hall we were passing by now had several doorways opening into a combination of amphitheater and mess hall. There was an old stage in the back with tattered and befouled curtains, which I imagined Sweetie Belle, the mare who would become Stable 2's first overmare, performed on. The room was crowded haphazardly with tables and benches and several dozen razor ponies, scarfing a pale stew, the odor of which was mixing unpleasantly with the stench of unbathed ponies and an underscent of dry rot. I kicked on the next log on my pip-buck to distract me.
I wasn't fast enough. I should have known better. No wonder the rest of the staff fled so quickly. I should have known that Shattered Hoof would go into lockdown as soon as the mainframe realized we were cut off from the outside. Assisted jailbreak prevention protocols. By the time I made my decision to release the guests from their cells, we were already all trapped inside. I know how the weaker ones fare. I can only imagine what they'll do to me when they find a member of the staff got locked in with them. I took the food from the guardhouse fridge and locked myself into this bathroom. I locked several other doors, too. With luck, they'll think it's normal for this door to be locked as well. Because if they really try to break it down, I'm sure they can. I've got maybe 3 days of food, plenty of water, a little bit of medicine. I hope it'll last me long enough for them to find a way out of Shattered Hoof. My only chance is if they leave before they realize I'm here.
As we exited into the yard, the guard turned on me, pushing me up against the wall.
"You want to know my story?" he growled. "I'll tell you. I was a merchant on the caravan that God's talons were supposed to be guarding. Saw them try to buck us over to slavers and saw her take them down. So how'd I get here? She flew me in. Just like we all know she flew you in."
My ears tilted. I could feel the stone wall grinding into my backside.
"I used to be one of those ponies out there following God. But you don't become a good merchant if you can't read changes in the market. So I made my allegiances with Deadeyes."
The merchant turned guard and informed me, his voice rumbling with warning.
"God's heading for the chopping block. And trust me, you don't want to be standing on the wrong side when the axe comes down."
The two then turned from me, the other one chuckling. "You go teleport out now." They left me in the rock yard, locking the door behind them. Looking around the yard, I realized that any structure designed to hold ponies prisoner would have wards to prevent unicorns from just teleporting out. It was a rare magical ability, but one they would anticipate. I moved over to where the mattress cover had been thrown and hid myself, clicking another audio log as I waited for Calamity. The voice was soft, nearly drowned out by the sounds of heated argument in the background.
Out of food. Made what I had stretched, I think. No real way to tell time in here. But I think it's been a week. At least 4 days. After the food was gone, I raided the garbage can. Mold apple cores. They were brown, bushy, tasted horrid. The guests outside are doing much worse. It was less than 2 days' food in the pantry when we went into lockdown. Now they're starving. I can hear them outside, arguing about who they're going to eat first. Oh, no. They can't. It's beyond horrific.
The pony's voice was cut off by a muffled scream. The chaos in the background heightened, and I could clearly make out a pony shouting, "Cover up!"
No, don't make me hear this, please, Celestia Luna, please. I can't hear this.
Night hugged us in its darkness as Calamity carried me toward Yellow Hill Ridge. "Now, why are we helping this dead-eyes feller again?"
"Still trying to get a chance at that safe for God. Remember Velvet?"
"Yup," he said dourly. We flew in silence a few more minutes before. "Where's this place supposed to be again? I can't see a damn thing out here tonight." I had the location marked on my Pip-Buck's auto map, but I hesitated to lift my leg and look. Shifting myself around while being carried by a flying Pegasus seemed unwise. Instead, I brought up my eyes forward sparkle to check the compass. Nothing. Either I'd forgot to set the compass to keep track of Yellow Hill Ridge, or we were off course.
Dagnabbit, I overshot!
Calamity banked, the cool night wind cutting through my coat and mane. The turn brought a number of flickering lights into view.
Is that what we're looking for? Looks like a whole mess of campers to me.
I checked my EFS. Now I could see the marker. It was pulsing at the very edge of my compass.
No, we're still off course. It's back that way.
Calamity didn't turn.
Hold on and hush. I want to see what this is then.
He swooped a little lower, aiming to fly a pass above the lights. As we neared, I too could make out a mass of tents, cookpots, and ponies. And as we drew closer, banners, red and black, a stylized white eye with a crimson iris dominating the center. The ponies down there were armed, and there were a lot of them. I spotted 2 griffins amongst them, Talon mercenaries by their armor, but wearing neckbands of red and black with a distinctive eye. Clearly not God's talons. Different company. Towards the back of the camp, I spotted the rows of slaver wagons. Calamity beat his wings, grunting softly in pain as he pulled us higher into the darkness, hopefully before any of those below had taken a glance up.
Well, ain't this a barrel of bad apples? Calamity,
I whispered, not able to unhear that grunt.
Your wing.
I'm fine. Hush now. We continued to fly. I was now keeping a closer eye on my EFS compass. Yellow Hill Ridge was a quarter mile back toward Shattered Hoof, with just enough hills between to have ensured that we wouldn't have spotted the camp had we come straight to it. This time, I spotted the tiny speck of the waiting courier's lantern. I suggested to Calamity that we fly past and let me trot up alone, coming from the expected direction. Deadeyes clopped his hooves together, reading me. I had mentioned nothing of the Red-Eye Slaver Army.
Good work, he said finally. Go get yourself some rest. You look like a griffin's play toy. Come back tomorrow. I'll have one more job for you. Do that, and you're in.
With that, he waved me off. This time, to my surprise, no pony jumped to escort me. I was only a few yards down the hall when Deadeyes, accompanied by all his guards, simply walked out of his office, leaving the door open behind him. They turned, moving off in a different direction. I stopped. The safe was unguarded. This was almost too easy. No, it was definitely too easy. I activated the stealth buck. The safe was tricky, but within my range of skill. It popped open with a snap. The only thing inside was the ledger. I slipped the ledger into my saddlebag and was just snapping the safe shut when Deadeyes and his entourage returned, looking around. If it hadn't been for the spell, they would have seen me. Deadeyes began to trot around the back of his desk from the right, his brutish bodyguard circling from the left, trapping me. It didn't matter if they would see me. The slightest bump would let them know I was here. As they drew closer, I scrambled up onto the desk itself. The other 2 guards, one of them the ex-merchant, took their positions by the door. I turned on the desk, crouching, and prepared to crawl down and out between them. One of them shut the door. Luna, fuck me with the moon. I turned slowly. Deadeyes had stopped and was staring at his safe.
Think she took it?
The former merchant asked. My heart sank into my stomach.
Oh, I think our little spy did whatever Gardenia wanted her to do.
Deadeye smiled.
All the better. Let the griffin cook herself.
He turned to his guards. Best prepare the others. Red Eye's forces are set to raid Shattered Hoof the sunrise after tomorrow. We want to make sure they have no trouble getting in. It's time to meet the big man himself.
My mind reeled. Deadeyes was making deals with the slavers? He was going to let Red Eye's forces come in and capture the ponies he was supposed to be protecting here? The treachery mirrored the betrayal of Guard's talons, but on a much larger scale. Deadeye strode behind his desk and clopped his hooves down on it, forcing me to lift one of mine to avoid being touched. I could feel sweat break out across my forehead as I balanced silently. Deadeyes leaned forward to grab his copy of Applied Gemstones with his teeth. With a fright, I realized I was standing on it. I lifted my hind leg away with just barely enough time. Now my balance was much more strenuous. My whole body was achy from sleep deprivation. I searched frantically for a place to put one of my raised hooves before I fell. The door banged open. I toppled on the floor with a thud as a pair of earth ponies burst in. Deadeyes jumped back, startled, his book dropping to the floor. Sir, sorry to interrupt, but we've got an intruder. Deadeye stared at the two ponies.
Little unicorn girl, about this high,
he asked casually, raising his hoof. No, sir, this one's a Pegasus. With the moon. My pit buck alerted me that the invisibility spell was about to wear off. I didn't have a choice. I lurched to my hooves and skirted around the ponies, barely slipping between them, then dashed out through the open door. I galloped to the meeting spot as fast as my weary legs could take me. Calamity was waiting for me, hidden under the mattress cover.
No need for that now. They spotted you. Got the ledger. Let's go.
We were airborne in moments. I could tell how tired Calamity was. We kept dipping in the air. I winced at the workout we were giving his mending wing.
We get back to God and we sleep. No matter what else, we have to sleep.
He hadn't complained, but I could tell his wing was killing him. I played another audio log. This time the mare was no longer whispering, but I could still barely hear her over a thundering racket.
Damn it. They know I'm in here. I woke from my nightmare with such a start that I kicked over the garbage can. They heard it. They'll break through the door soon.
I could hear one of the ponies on the other side of the bathroom door call out abysmally profane promises.
I don't have to guess what they'll do to me anymore. They want me to know. But I'm not going to let them. Go figure. This crappy little gun is going to save me after all. Use the handle to shatter the mirror. This is going to hurt. But if I do it quickly, it won't hurt for long.
There was one audio log left. Junction R7 swam into view through the darkness. Exhausted, Calamity brought us in for a slightly rough landing. Ponies pointed glowing magical energy weapons at us from all directions. God stepped forward.
Welcome back. I was beginning to wonder about you two.
She looked us over.
Got the ledger?
I nodded shakily.
Yes, but before you look at it, I want to look at it. And there's something you should know.
God raised an eyebrow.
Oh?
She asked appraisingly.
Deadeyes knows. He pretty much let me steal it. I overheard him saying something about letting you cook yourself.
God sat back, regarding me. Finally,
I'm impressed. You didn't have to tell me that.
Then, with a narrow look,
So why did you? What's in it for you?
I swayed on my hooves.
There's more, but I'll only tell you that after my friends and I get some sleep. Here, under the safety of your protection.
God's beak broke into a grin, the scar twisting it on one side.
All right, you've got yourself a bargain.
Pointedly.
But while you sleep, I want that ledger.
I nodded.
What I want out of it won't take long.
God guided us back toward one of the cattle cars. As I stepped a hoof inside, I felt a rush of relief to see Velvet Remedy curled on a bed of slightly moldy hay. She was talking softly with another pony as she watched over a third whose hind leg was wrapped in what had been some of our precious remaining bandages. I wondered how many medical supplies we had left, if any. Velvet Remedy jumped up at our return, giving us a weak but bright smile.
What did you do? Take the scenic route?
Yep, something like that, Calamity responded.
And what did I say about this wing?
Velvet Remedy pushed Calamity toward the corner of the car train that had clearly become her impromptu clinic.
Let me take a look at it and change those bandages.
Shaking my head in a combination of adoration and despair, I followed behind her. I was too tired to even appreciate how nice a tail side she had. Finding a bit of hay that looked filthy but soft, I curled down and levitated out the ledger. Flipping through, I found entries going back many years. The newest ones I felt were suspect. Whatever Deadeyes was up to, I'd rather expected he had doctored the ledger as part of it. But the older entries, faded as they were, couldn't have been altered without being obvious. At least, not by an earth pony. I found myself wondering what a forgery cutie mark would look like. It was easy to find the entry I was looking for. Some of the nearby farmers had begun to put up resistance, armed themselves with that merchant caravan that passed through last month. One of them took a few shots at the raider party I dispatched to the east side. Mr. Topaz doesn't care. He just wants the rocks to keep coming. So I think it's time we reminded these rock farmers why they do as we say. Tomorrow, I'm sending some of the boys up to the Bell farm to make an example. Told them to make it real graphic so the rest of these ponies don't have any room to misinterpret. I slammed the book closed with more telekinetic force than I thought I had left in me. The ledger went flying across the cattle car, bouncing off the far wall. Now I didn't want to sleep. Now I wanted to march back in there, stuff little Macintosh down Deadeye's throat, and open fire. Instead, I got up, fetched the ledger, and walked out to have a talk with God.
So what now?
God looked up from the ledger, gazing at me from across her desk.
Now you go to sleep. Tomorrow, we have a bit of a chat over breakfast and you're free to go. By then, all the border patrols and outposts will know I've said you're free to pass. You did the job. A verbal contract is still a contract, and I don't renege.
God frowned slightly.
Too bad, too. We could really use a skilled medic here.
I let that sink in. Still, not really what I was looking for.
How about you? What about me?
I pointed a hoof at the ledger.
What do you do now?
God huffed, then drew herself up.
Mr. Topaz has contacted me to protect Shattered Hoof and its ponies from threats. Ain't hard to argue that Deadeyes has just become such a threat.
She jabbed her ledger with a talon.
I can't ignore this. I knew Deadeyes was up to something shady, but this is beyond the pale.
A little too on the nose, part of me thought. Almost like Deadeye's treachery was custom-tailored to get under God's feathers. I told her as much. She laughed, a bitter but still humored laugh.
Think I don't see that?
I could guess what she must be planning, and another question surfaced in my brain.
What would you do with the place if you were in charge?
She gave me a look.
Shattered Hoof, I mean. What would you do?
Slowly, evenly, she intoned,
I'm not in charge. I'm not gonna be. Even with Deadeye's gone, Mr. Topaz runs this joint, and I'm still contracted to him.
Right, I thought as I nodded, but what if you weren't? Velvet Remedy approached me as I returned to the cattle car. I was so tired, but my heart still fluttered a little at her approach.
So, is the Griffin actually letting us go?
I nodded. Velvet Remedy looked surprised more than relieved.
We get to spend the night. We need sleep. I would insist. Calamity's done more damage to his wing with all that flying around. He needs time to heal.
I winced painfully. Velvet Remedy switched topics with what my sleep-deprived mind insisted was a jarring abruptness.
Little Pip, I had the most interesting conversation while you and Calamity were out stealing.
I sighed weakly. I wasn't really up for this.
See the buck over there?
She asked, pointing a hoof toward a dark shape I assumed was a sleeping pony.
His name is Preacher.
I nodded, vaguely recalling God saying something about a preacher.
He says he's come here to spread the word of the goddess out from under the hoof of Red Eye.
My ears perked. Velvet Remedy had my full attention.
The word of the goddess?
I asked. The way she spoke made it clear she wasn't talking about Celestia or Luna. Velvet Remedy nodded.
He claims this goddess of his has been speaking to him in dreams since he was a tiny colt.
Her tone suggested her prognosis didn't involve the divine. I wasn't ready to dismiss it so quickly. Looking sternly to Velvet Remedy, I whispered back,
He might be right.
Her eyes widened in disbelief. Before she could open her muzzle to mock, I elaborated.
Ever wonder how the slavers got ahead of our train like that? I've been wondering if there might be some sort of telepathic magic involved somehow.
I felt a sudden urge to travel to 10 Pony Tower and talk with DJ Pony. He seemed to have an incredibly good, if imperfect, network of informants. Or possibly some sort of magic or technology that was giving him the lay of the land. I wanted to trade information, find out what he knew. There was a puzzle here, and I was still several pieces short of seeing the picture. If any pony had those pieces, it would be DJ Pony. Velvet Remedy seemed to be digesting my comment. Finally, she spoke again.
Well, if that's true, it puts the rest of what Preacher said in a more ominous light.
She led me to the far corner of the cattle car, whispering,
According to Preacher, the goddess chooses to speak to very few ponies.
I found myself questioning that. Chooses? Or are there limitations to this so-called goddess's powers?
And the pony, Red Eye, is the one she speaks to the most. However, Preacher isn't so sure Red Eye is...
Velvet Remedy paused, searching for words.
Getting the message right. He seems to think that Red Eye's reception is being garbled.
Clearly, Velvet Remedy was not satisfied with the analogy, but I got the idea.
Either that, Velvet continued, or he's just not listening. Either way, Preacher's here to spread the true word of the goddess, away from Red Eye and his bands of slavers.
I thought of the armed camp parked a few hours' trot outside Shattered Hoof territory. Preacher didn't go far enough. I hesitated to ask,
And what is the true word?
I really didn't want to ask the preacher directly. Sure, I'd get an answer that wasn't tainted by Velvet Remedy's own prejudices, but at the cost of being roped into sermon, I was too tired to even contemplate that thought.
To paraphrase, praise me, worship me, and I will lift you up, and you will all become one, unified under me.
Velvet Remedy had clearly suffered through hours of this. I could understand why God had been wary of gaining another preacher. I nodded to Velvet.
There's a pile of hay calling my name. We're going to talk to God again at breakfast tomorrow, but after that, we're free to go.
I wasn't so sure, however, that I wanted to leave just yet. I played the last audio log before I headed to bed. This time, the banging on the bathroom door was much louder, rhythmic. It sounded like the ponies outside were using a piece of furniture as a battering ram. I could hear structural cracking from the door frame. The mayor's voice was weak, and she spoke in a disturbing sing-song.
I hear you knocking, but you can't come in. I hear you. Yeah, I hear you. Wow. I just realized I've got all these diaries. The only ponies that will ever hear them are you fuckers! Fuck you all. Every last one of you. Oh wow. Dizzy. What was I? You know, I kind of think red is my color. Splish, splash, clop, clop. Hey, Silver Spoon, let's paint the town red. Or, at least the bathroom. Oh, keep knocking, you bastards! This doesn't go with my cutie mark, though. That's okay. It's a stupid cutie mark anyway. Really, a crown of diamonds. What the fuck's that supposed to mean? I mean, I get the diamonds. Celestial knows I've inspected enough of them. Sent the best ones below for years now. There's something else you're never gonna get. Just like you're not gonna get me. My name is Diamond Tiara. And you fuckers didn't get me. I got away. I mean, really though, a crown? What was that supposed to mean? You can't get me. You can't get.
Footnote. Level up. New perk. Silent Gallop. You have mastered silent movement, allowing you to move quickly and still remain quiet. You can sneak at full speed with no penalties.